Hey, what is up everybody, it's ℂ𝕂𝔻𝔻 here for Anime Uproar, and the heroes just made a massive mistake. A mistake that could lead them to lose this entire war. Like, literally, heroes will die because of what just happened in the story, and I don't think the heroes realize that this one factor that they didn't account for is about to ruin their entire master plan. They spent so much time and resources trying to trap All For One and Shigaraki, and in the end, it looks like it's all gonna be for nothing. So yeah, things are about to get really interesting and really deadly, so let's get into it. You guys know the drill. If you enjoy our MHA content and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now to help us out with that YouTube algorithm. And of course, subscribing is a completely free but extremely important way of directly supporting the channel. You can also hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar, and Twitter in particular has been quite the chaotic mess lately, so you know, if you're on there, hit us up. Finally, this video will of course contain MHA manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution, you have been warned. So in the previous chapter, Shoji tried to reason with the other heteromorphs who were preparing to attack the hospital. As literally thousands of them were about to follow Spinner and assault the hospital along with him, Shoji told them that what they're doing isn't helping anyone. Attacking vulnerable civilians inside the hospital, some of whom are heteromorphs themselves, will not only fail to advance their cause, it will actually make things worse. If society sees that thousands of heteromorphs are capable of attacking a hospital full of civilians, then the stigma against them will only increase. And the people who are hurt today at the hands of these heteromorphs will one day seek revenge against them and their children, and this horrible cycle of violence will continue endlessly. Spinner and that PLF commander tried their best to keep Shoji's words from reaching the angry masses. But bit by bit, Shoji's arguments and his willingness to sacrifice himself for his ideals began to break through the anger of the crowd. When people saw how fellow heteromorphs like Shoji and Koda were fighting bravely on the side of the heroes, and when they saw fellow heteromorph civilians putting their bodies on the line in order to protect the hospital, they started second-guessing themselves. After all, we have to remember that most of these mutant quirk users who are in the crowd don't want to hurt innocent people or commit crimes. All they really want at the end of the day is to be treated fairly, and the villains had convinced them that violence was the only way to get their point across. But Shoji, Koda, and the other heteromorphs who are fighting on the side of the heroes showed the crowd that there is another way. And slowly but surely, the angry masses became less angry, and they lost their desire for violence and destruction. At the end of the previous chapter, we saw Spinner making his way through the hospital in the belief that he was a leader now and that thousands of heteromorphs were following behind him, ready to fight for him. Spinner thought that he had finally become someone who matters, someone like his hero, Stain. But in reality, by the time that Spinner reached Kurogiri, he was on his own. No one was following him anymore, except for Present Mike, who came there to stop him from breaking Kurogiri out. The latest chapter gives us a bit more insight into how exactly Spinner came to be alone in the end. And I'm actually glad that we got more info on this, because in the previous chapter, it did feel a little sudden. It was like one moment everyone is behind Spinner, and the next they all have a change of heart. We now see that after Spinner launched himself towards the hospital, Present Mike immediately went after him. As he departed, he left it up to Shoji and Koda to hold the other villains and riders back so that Spinner wouldn't get back up. At one point, Shoji nearly gets smashed in the back of the head by a heteromorph holding a stick. But before he can hurt Shoji, his hand is stopped by another heteromorph. This other mutant quirk user appears to have some physical features of a pig, and this guy was actually part of the angry mob. But Shoji's words and actions have gotten through to him, and he has realized that what they're doing is wrong. As he looks at the innocent and scared people who have been endangered by Spinner's attack on the hospital, this heteromorph says that he doesn't think that this is a good use for his rage. The PLF commander, who is still being pinned down by all of those birds that Koda summoned, screams out that the heteromorphs can't let the heroes intimidate them. They have to keep moving forward and fighting for their leader, Spinner. He is urging the mutant quirk users to embrace their rage and to take revenge on the society that has shunned them. The man with the pig-like features says that he knows all of that pain and rage well. He has been attacked multiple times just because he was born with that unique appearance. And he was all swept up in the moment and ready to follow the lead of the villains. But now he realizes that there has to be a better way. It's clear that the whole world isn't the enemy of the heteromorphs. After all, there are plenty of heteromorphs who are heroes and doctors and policemen and other important members of society. There are bad people out there for sure, people who discriminate against heteromorphs even if the heteromorphs didn't do anything wrong. But at the same time, there clearly are some people who are good and who don't deserve to be hurt. If they continue with this mission, the villains and the rioters will end up hurting good, innocent people, and if they do, there's no going back from that. The PLF commander is furious that Shoji's logic managed to get through to the rioters because the villains had done such a good job of indoctrinating them and manipulating them. He tries to rally the crowd and to push them into continuing the attack, but it's clear that a whole bunch of people in the crowd are having serious doubts about their actions. They are all angry about the injustices they suffered, they do want real change and they want it immediately, but at the same time they don't want to become the kind of people who hurt the innocent. They don't want to become villains. With tears in his eyes, Shoji tells them that the feeling that brought them here is not wrong. They are simply reacting to the very real pain that has been a fact of life for all of them for a long time. In that moment, the other heroes, the ones who are not heteromorphs, begin reaching out to the mutant quirk users who are gathered there. These other heroes apologize that they weren't sensitive to their struggles and they pledge to do better in the future. Shoji tells his fellow heteromorphs that they should work together to change the minds of people who have misconceptions about them. And once everyone understands that heteromorphs are normal people just like everyone else, it will be considered shameful and socially unacceptable to discriminate against them. These hopeful words begin to reverberate through the crowd, and eventually the entire angry mob is pacified. And that is why Spinner ended up alone, because the crowd abandoned the mission that the villains were pushing them into, and the remaining villains like the PLF commander were subdued by the heroes. With the crowd calm, the heroes switch their focus to the hospital, because while Spinner is now alone, he is still dangerous. And if he can somehow awaken Kurogiri, the heroes will be in massive trouble. We have to remember that Kurogiri has the power to teleport Shigaraki/All-for-One out of range of Aizawa's quirk erasure. And if that happens even for a moment, Shigaraki/All-for-One will have access to all of his many overpowered quirks. And if that happens, the game will change completely. Back in the room where Kurogiri is being kept, Present Mike manages to knock Spinner down with a sonic attack. This attack also breaks the recorder that Spinner was carrying, the recorder which contained the voices of All-for-One and Shigaraki, and which he had planned to use to awaken Kurogiri. As a Nomu, Kurogiri is programmed to obey the orders of his master. So kind of like what we saw with ℂ𝕂𝔼𝔻, just hearing a recording of his master's voice should be enough to get him moving. But that plan has clearly failed. The recorder is destroyed, and Spinner is now on the ground, and he is back to his normal form. His gigantification has fallen off, those big scales that he had on his body have fallen off, and he is an absolute mess. His mind still isn't functioning properly, and he can't even put simple sentences together. And even in this warped state, Spinner suddenly realizes that his dream of becoming important and a hero for his friends has collapsed right in front of him. He failed to complete his mission, he has no way of awakening Kurogiri without that recording, and his desire to make Shigaraki proud has gone unfulfilled. Present Mike thinks that he may have succeeded here, and he wonders what his friend Shirakuma would say if he knew that Aizawa lost an eye and a leg in the recent battles against the villains. Present Mike clearly wishes that there was some way of bringing his friend Shirakuma back. But if there isn't, then he wishes that Kurogiri would just disappear or just never wake up. The pain that both he and Aizawa feel at the loss of their friend Shirakumo is massive. And of course, the fact that his body is now being manipulated by the villains makes things even worse. But as it turns out, Spinner is not done yet. He brought with him one of the hands that Shigaraki once carried as part of his costume, and actually it seems to be the father hand that Shigaraki carried over his face. The hand fell out when Spinner collapsed to the ground, and the sight of the hand gave him a new sense of purpose and determination. Spinner manages to get back to his feet, he grabs the hand, and he places it over Kurogiri's face. Then he tells Kurogiri, "Let's save Shigaraki and the others." As Present Mike calls out to his friend Shirakumo, Kurogiri suddenly awakens, and the black mist that his quirk normally produces begins to grow and spread. But the awakened Kurogiri looks a bit different. He seems to have one Nomu eye like before, but his left eye looks like a human eye, Shirakumo's eye. The chapter ends as Kurogiri says, "I am the one who protects Tomura Shigaraki." But as he says this, he uses the first person pronoun ore, which is the pronoun that was normally used by Shirakumo, not Kurogiri. And as the narration on the final page tells us that Kurogiri is about to join the battle and that the war has reached a new stage, we are left to wonder how much of this awakened Kurogiri is the Kurogiri we know, and how much of it is actually Shirakumo. Does the fact that his one eye looks human and the fact that he used ore mean that Shirakumo is beginning to awaken within Kurogiri? Does this mean that Kurogiri is about to have a split personality, and a part of him will want to fight for the villains while a part of him will want to support the heroes? Does his vow to protect Shigaraki Tomura mean that he may have to turn against All for One when he realizes that All for One is actually the one trying to take over Shigaraki's body by force? Are we about to witness full power Shigaraki with all of his quirks thanks to Kurogiri's Warp Gate? This is a lot to think about, and we are definitely entering a new and very dangerous stage of the war. I've said this before, but I think Kurogiri will primarily be a villain at first, and his quirk will allow Shigaraki / All for One to reach his full power. That's because this is a shonen, and let's be real, no one wants to see the final villain defeated before he has a chance to show us his full power. Shigaraki regaining the use of his quirks will then push Deku to get even stronger. He will experience quirk singularity, and his 7 different quirks will all merge into one super quirk. That has been my theory for a while, and I'm sticking to it. Nevertheless, I do think that eventually Kurogiri will revert back to Shirakumo, and he will help the heroes. That's because I believe that Shirakumo is not a corpse. He is still alive within Kurogiri. The base for the Nomu known as Kurogiri was not the corpse of Shirakumo, rather it was the injured but still living body of Shirakumo, which is why Kurogiri was such an intelligent and advanced Nomu, even though he was made like 2 decades ago. With all of that said though, I do think that the heroes are about to pay a very heavy price for allowing Kurogiri to be released. I mean, I know that the heroes are understaffed and that they couldn't split up their forces too much, but leaving only Present Mike and a few other heroes in charge of protecting something as important as Kurogiri was a big mistake. The fact that Kurogiri was not in a top secret location but in a public hospital that the villains could easily find was just a terrible move. And we are likely going to see some serious consequences as a result of this screw up by the heroes. Once Shigaraki / All for One gains the ability to use his quirks again, he will likely take charge of the battlefield and launch some devastating attacks. And I think that some heroes and maybe even hero students will die as a result of those attacks before Deku finds a way to take One for All to the next level. The tragic deaths that he witnesses will infuriate Deku and push him to take that final step towards quirk singularity. So yeah, if we're being real, I know the situation that the heroes are in is very difficult, but the failure to keep Kurogiri in custody is going to have serious repercussions. And straight up, the heroes really screwed up on this one. Again, I know it's a difficult war, I know they're outnumbered, but this is a major mistake and a costly one, as we are about to find out. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my speculations about what is going to happen next? And are we about to see some deadly consequences as a result of the hero's failure to keep Kurogiri under wraps? Is Kurogiri going to remain a villain? Will he revert back to being Shirakumo, or are we going to see something in between? Finally, will Kurogiri break the effects of erasure and allow Shigaraki/All-For-One to reach his full potential? Let me know down below. I always love hearing from you. If you guys enjoyed this MHA video and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment. It helps me out a lot. And if you are one of the over 50% of people who watch our videos but are not subscribed yet, make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. Subscribing is completely free and it is a very real way to directly support the channel right now. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at ℂ𝕂𝔻𝔻. Big thank you to all of our ℂ𝕂𝔻𝔻 patrons for making videos like this one possible. Special thank you to Trucker Tim, a disciple of Lord Tweego himself. And I can't forget all of our The One tier patrons, including Alpha Sigma, Pate Heffa, The Toasted Chi, Corey McGowan, Owen, Taylor, and Anime S Code M. Finally, thank you to all of our other patrons, including Pro Hero tier patrons, the one and only Gilgamesh, Angel Cruz, Alicia Octor, Fatboy Games, Kaido Might Be a Duck, Alivania, Sandy, and The School Bus. If you enjoy our videos and you feel that they provide value to you, consider supporting us on Patreon or by becoming a channel member. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.